Welcome back to Movement Project. Tim Rementor, Doctor of Physical Therapy. I had a great response to my review video of knees over toes guy exercises. So after paying for 2 months of his service, I decided I would do an upper body version of the review exercise video. Now, while some of these exercises might be in his paid program, he shows and demonstrates them all for free on his YouTube channel. I'm just going to take a deeper dive from a physical therapist perspective and show you some tweaks along the way to help you possibly make the exercises even better. The first exercise we're going to review is the thoracic extension over the bench. This is a classic gym exercise, usually done in a little bit of a different position, in line with the bench. Using the bench across your spine, you're getting a really massive stretch to your thoracic spine while you're doing your strengthening of your pecs and your lats. One tweak I'd like to add with this exercise is to do it across multiple levels in your thoracic spine. So if we start off with the exercise, we want to go over a couple key points. First one is our grip. So how you hold this dumbbell when you go overhead is going to change the stress on your shoulders. So if you can get in a position, this classic position is where people will kind of hook their hands around like this and pull back overhead. That's going to bring your arms more adducted or together, which can put more strain on the rotator cuff, things like your AC joints. And you want to be a little bit careful if you have any history of shoulder problems. So what we can do is we can come out with a grip out to the sides with our palms here to go overhead. So I usually work with 25 pounds on this. I have the adjustable dumbbell, so you can quickly pop it in your station and change the weight. But we want to be conscious of where we do this exercise. So we start off on the lower part of the shoulder blades, the mid-thoracic spine. So that grip I like to use is in here like so. And then my thumbs are kind of back pointed toward the floor. So I'll do my reps. Usually I'll do my first set there, then I'll go mid-shoulder blade for another set, down, and I'll go toward the top of the shoulder blade for the third set. And you notice I'm keeping my hips down when I do that. That's so that I'm getting all the extension through the thoracic spine and not getting substitution motion, or basically so my low back and hips can't help. I keep my hips down and sunk, and then all the extension comes through the thoracic spine. So fantastic exercise. You do have to be careful that you don't load it too heavy. He, as always, does a good job with making sure that you're using proper form and starting with a light weight and progressing from there. The next exercise in the series is the prone lower trap exercise. Now the lower trap works when your shoulder is overhead or out to the side, up about 135, 120 degrees. It helps that shoulder blade move up overhead. So you get into the position where your arms are about 120 degrees, and then you're just trying to lift off of the floor from there. And you'll feel that almost in your lower back, because that lower trap goes all the way down into the lower thoracic spine. So if you can take it through a little range of motion, it's a nice tweak where you bring it up and you try to bring it down behind your back. Now in his exercises, he shows almost a Superman version. I don't like to do the Superman version just because of the research that's out there on the increased pressure in the lumbar discs. But if it works for you, feel free to do it. The Superman, just so I demonstrate, is where you're just lifting the legs at the same time. You know, he'll basically go through that type of a motion, okay? And it's a really effective exercise that uses works an underused muscle in the shoulder blade and thoracic spine. So you want to make sure you're not overloading it. Try to build your reps up to where you're able to do 15 and even 20 reps and build from there slowly. Never an exercise you're going to get particularly heavy with, more focus on your rep count. Now if lying down doesn't work for you for that exercise for whatever reason, we can use a door anchor and resistance band overhead, and then you're just pulling straight back. Same exact position that you were when you were on your stomach. Good position of your hips. We don't want to drop into hip extension or lumbar extension when we do this. I actually prefer this exercise because it's more functional, because we stand, we don't lay on our stomach very much in life. So both good exercises. This is a nice tweak that you can do without having to lie down. The right order to do the exercises would definitely be to do the thoracic exercise first, and then you can get into the upper body push-pull overhead press. So when he talks about his dumbbell press, he has a focus on keeping one head of the dumbbell on the front part of your trunk and shoulder and the other head of the dumbbell on the back of your trunk and shoulder, and being able to keep that as you press overhead and bringing those arms down in plane all the way up and down. So now that exercise is great because it's keeping the thoracic extension you just gained from the last exercise. Now, one thing to consider when we're doing this overhead press, the best plane of movement for our arm is 30 degrees forward from the side position. That's called the scapular plane. So there's the greatest sort of freedom of movement for your rotator cuff in this plane of movement. So when you're there, if you have it slightly forward, this is a good place to start. Having this added to it puts you in a little bit of a better position and forces you into that thoracic extension that so many people are lacking. So I love that tweak on it. If you can't get there, again, go ahead and do that slight pronation or palm turn and bring the arms forward a little bit and just keep trying to work on getting into that position with one head of the dumbbell forward of the trunk and one head behind. Compare that to the dumbbell press overhead where you have these rotated in this position. It requires a lot more shoulder and thoracic mobility and puts you into potentially a little bit more external rotation as opposed to here at the bottom position, you're able to keep those shoulders flexed down a little bit more. Whereas here you kind of have to open up and it puts your shoulder in a little bit more vulnerable position and a risk for injury as opposed to this kind of compact position. In the most advanced version of the exercise, he talks about it behind the neck military press or overhead press, which as physical therapists, we're not a fan of this exercise. The difference between the dumbbell overhead press and the barbell overhead press is when you get down to this bottom position, it kind of forces you into external rotation because you have both arms on the bar. And if you don't have adequate thoracic extension, you're just going to be injuring. It's just a matter of time. You're going to injure your rotator cuff and cause some problems in your shoulder. So really making sure you have good thoracic range of motion. I'd much rather you keep this overhead and try to make sure you maintain that thoracic extension, and then you can get it back at the top position, but getting it down here is just going to grind that rotator cuff. I mean, he has world-class thoracic extension. If you do too, feel free to try it, but make sure you stop if you have any pain. The next exercise in the knees over toes upper body series is a one-armed row exercise. He also goes over some ring rows in the early stages, but when we get into using the weights for the push-up and the press, which I'll show shortly, the single arm row is kind of in this classic position on the bench, trying to get full range of motion, shoulder extension, talking about sprinters and jumpers really need good shoulder extension. So he focuses on that, which requires you to, again, use that thoracic spine, those shoulder blade muscles. Now, one thing I like to change with this exercise is I have a couple little tweaks. The first is in the classic exercise, we have this right foot down, left foot up, but we can kind of switch it where we have this here and we get more of a stretch that way on the downward motion. And then we can still get that extension. So working alternately in your sets, a set with one leg up, a set with the other leg up, and you can bring yourself through some different ranges of motion. Here you can get a little bit more range on the top, and you can get more stretch at the bottom with the right leg up. The other tweak to the row that I recommend is doing it unsupported so that it becomes more of a lower back exercise as well. Arnold Schwarzenegger was famous for always wanting to do his bent over rows without support so that he could build his lower back muscle groups. So here you're now doing one arm at a time. Okay, you can do 2 dumbbells at once if you want to do more load. I like 1 at a time because then it forces your spine to control that rotation, which is a key element for somebody who's suffering with back pain. is making sure you have good rotational control. So when you do one at a time, your spine muscles have to stabilize. It's a great way to tweak that, and you're still trying to get as much extension as you can, and shoulder blade squeeze at the back. Dumbbell press, there's another heavy emphasis on taking your shoulder through that full range of motion and trying to get a lot of extension here when you do this exercise. If you watched my video on shoulder pain with push-ups, you know how important that serratus anterior is for shoulder pain and stability. So when you get to the top, you want to make sure you extend. So I would add that as a tweak to this, you know, kind of bulletproof shoulder program. He likes to emphasize the bottom. I like to emphasize the top to get that press plus there. So make sure you're working through that with this exercise. Now that bottom position can be very difficult for a lot of people. So you want to make sure your load is low when you start. There's no way you're going to be able to do the same weight that you're used to doing with a dumbbell press when you get to this bottom range of motion. Okay, but if you've gotten to this part of this program, you've already kind of worked through the push-ups with a stretch using stools or push-up bars that you can buy online. I have links in the video description for my adjustable dumbbells, push-up bars, and a bunch of other things that I use in my gym and to go through his program. The next exercise is shoulder external rotation, where he puts you in a position with the knee bent up on your bench, and then you're trying to just bring the shoulder, again, emphasizing full range of motion, into external rotation. All the research shows us how important it is to have strong external rotators compared to internal rotators. So most people are strong in their pecs and kind of overdeveloped, weak in the back part of the shoulder and in the shoulder blade, thus the emphasis on all the thoracic stuff we've been doing and the external rotation strengthening here. Now this, coincidentally, this position, this is actually a test that we do to see if somebody has an injured rotator cuff. So you got to be really careful when you're going through this motion, because it can actually produce a rotator cuff problem if you're not careful. So the position you're in, this is going to be much better than this. You would never want to do this exercise right in front of you, because you're just grinding that rotator cuff underneath the bone right above it. Okay, so here, and then trying to bring it a little bit more out to the side of your body. Okay, almost kind of out here more so is going to be a better approach, but you have to be careful on the way down. So I'm kind of in that scapular plane I mentioned before, which is about 30 degrees forward from that side position. Okay, starting off really low with your weight, probably 3 to 5% of your body weight, and building up from there would be doable for most people. If that's a problem for you, just switch to doing them on your side, making sure your shoulder blade is back, and then rotating from this arm at the side position. Build from there, and then you can try after a few weeks to go back to that position that he likes to show in the program. The thing I liked most about his program is that even though I'm a physical therapist, I loved how you just kind of dialed into the app and followed what you needed to do for the day, like you had a personal trainer right there with you. The other cool piece is that they have somebody evaluating your form so you don't move on to the next step before they feel that you're able to do the movement safely. To watch my first video reviewing popular knees over toes guy exercises, click down here. To subscribe to my channel and help me cut out unnecessary surgeries and opiate use by focusing on the movement that's the true cause, click over here. Remember, if you want to keep improving, you got to keep it moving.